based on everything that's going on today, we're going to take a little bit of a different look and see how we can use Power Platform to help your business goals reach the agility levels that they need to do. I don't think there's anybody on this webinar whose business is not undergoing substantial changes at this point in time. And this is something that I've worked with over the years in a lot of other businesses in other areas. So I think it's a particularly good time to talk about it. And what I wanted to talk about was how we can help our businesses be more agile in meeting new targets and new markets and new things by utilizing Power Platform to help do that. So just a little bit about myself. I was a critical care paramedic for 15 years, worked in New York, Nevada, Florida. So in other words, I know how to change my mind quickly and pivot fast and do things differently based on the conditions that are in front of me. I went back to school, got an IT degree. I've been in IT and BI for the last 10 years. I've got a long background in healthcare clinical and operational analytics. For places that I've worked and clients that I've worked with, I've got experience in Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and some of the largest privately held enterprise software companies in the world. There's a little picture of myself. Unfortunately, I'm not quite camera ready today. I haven't been to the barber in quite a while here in New York. And there's a link to my LinkedIn profile. Agenda's a little bit, we'll go through a little bit of an introduction, define business agility, talk a little bit about how Power Platform can help connect the dots, and then wrap things up. I'm going to try to go through the slides pretty quickly. I don't have too many of them. And then I'd like to open things up for questions and discussion. And so probably going to hopefully take about 10, 15 minutes to go through the slides. And then we'll take 10, 15 minutes or however long we have to talk about some things. So if we define business agility, one of the definitions that's out there on the web is it's the ability of an organization to adapt quickly to market changes, both internally and externally, respond rapidly and flexibly to customer demands, adapt and lead change in a productive and cost-effective way without compromising quality, and continuously at a competitive advantage if you can do that. Business agility is not what we in software talk about agile development. But agile development is a great methodology to help implement some of this stuff once you identify it. And one of the critical things in today's business environment is how fast you can change. So there's a couple of core challenges that stand in the way of a business really being truly agile. And one of those is software. Enterprise software is often heavily customized. It's hard to change, requires a long time to develop. There's a lot of places where you don't have access to the software source code or the resources to be able to make changes if you have the technological ability to do that. So software that's in place is certainly a challenge. People are in place are a challenge because people need to be flexible and completely rethink how they do things. The bigger the organization, sometimes the harder that can be. One of the other continuous challenges we see in IT projects is that people don't often really know what they want until they see it and work with a little bit. So it's one of the reasons that I think it's pretty important to start projects off small and be fast, flexible, and iterative, give them constant deliverables on a regular basis. And that kind of ties back to the agile development methodology. But the faster you can get stuff in front of people and the faster they can work with it, the faster they can get to the point where they often really need to be. The other issue that's out there are the business processes. A lot of companies, their business processes are cast in stone and very difficult to change. Again, I think the larger the company, the larger the problem there. It can be very, very hard sometimes to get the business processes to be agile enough where they can change, and that ties back into both the people and the software that are in place there. Why is Agile good? One of the interesting statistics that's out there is that 80% of analytics insights will not deliver business outcomes through 2022. And that's a quote from Gardner through the Designing for Analytics websites. The rapid changes in business environment are often driven by the most immediate needs. And if you look at the things that have been happening lately in your environment, things have to change fast and the requirements can be quickly identified. The smaller, faster iterative projects that get the project in front of the business faster, providing fast feedback on what works, are more likely to be successful. Rapid shifts in the business environment come to make the organization come to agreements more quickly than they never could before. In those even larger companies, you often see sometimes there's some back and forth between priorities between departments. Sometimes there's some back and forth between different needs. And when things are at a crisis level, it's a lot easier to get people to agree on what's the most important thing they need to get done soon. So having really clear requirements and having the very minimally viable products are often a lot more successful than the larger big bang projects because there's less pieces to come together and you can get things in front of people faster. And of course, you know, you have to have the obligatory in these trying times commercial. We've never had the need to pivot harder and faster than we do today. And that's why I think this is a really important topic that really lets IT come to be part of the core critical business processes, and how can we really support the business in ways that we've never done before, in a speed level that we've never done before. And those are things that I think today are just really, really important. For those of you that aren't familiar with the entire Power Apps platform, basically you've got the Power Apps section, which is a rapid application development environment. And you really can use Power Apps to build applications, depending on the complexity level, in hours or days, if not weeks, that you can't do on other platforms. You've got the ability to tie in all kinds of data sources. Power BI is your reporting and ETL, ELT. And one of the reasons that I really want to touch on Power BI a little bit is for rapid BI and reporting projects, Power BI's built-in ETL or ELT tools are something that can really give you a leg up on building faster projects. Power Automate is a great tool if your organization has it. It lets you tie in events from basically hundreds, if not thousands, of software applications and custom API development to trigger events in your other applications. Power Virtual Agents is something I haven't really used before personally. I'm not a huge chatbot person, but apparently from what I hear, it really enables faster chatbot development. Like I said, I personally don't have any experience with that particular product at this point. So one of the kind of interesting things across all the places in the Power Platform is that they're all built from the ground up for simple low-code integration. Most of the pieces of code that go into Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, not so much Power BI, but Power Apps and Power Automate are a kind of unique expression language, which is vaguely similar to the expressions languages in Excel. It does lead to some mental confusion for me personally because I forget which platform I'm on and I try to use Excel formulas and some of these things and it just doesn't quite work out. But you get it, once you get used to it and you get a hand to it, it really moves along pretty quickly. So what are the things that we can use in the Power Platform to really dramatically reduce your time to build? Power BI can cut your ETL build time dramatically. One project that I worked on recently, we essentially cut 3 to 5 months off of a BI project by cutting down on the infrastructure and the ETL. The data coming in was from a third-party SaaS application and it was being provided in an OData feed. Because of the challenges in OData, we had some issues doing the ETL on some traditional platforms. Our business requirements weren't particularly clear, and the business didn't really have a really clear-cut plan of the data that they needed immediately out of that application to come into our ETL structure. So basically, we were looking at 300 and some odd tables in the source application, and we didn't know which tables we needed. We didn't know which tables contained which data. We didn't have good documentation from the vendor. By using Power BI to do the ETL for this, we were able to surgically pick out the data that we needed, cut down on our data, and still provide the business unit with flexibility in the future to do additional development as they can elicit their requirements and be able to say exactly what they wanted. To do this on the other way where we defined all of the data beforehand would have taken us 3 to 5, 6 months to do all of the requirements analysis work on that, to be able to identify what tables were needed and write the code to build those tables, and then write the ETL code on one of the other 2 platforms that we could have used to be able to bring that data in. So we were able to immediately cut down 3 to 6 months while still providing the business with the access to the data that they needed, which is today, that's a pretty impressive stat. And that really shows where surgically using some of the tools that are in Power BI can really help you cut down on your ETL build and some of your requirements work by dramatically cutting down the amount of time you're spending building that infrastructure. Power Apps, you can cut down your application build time a lot depending on the complexity of the application and the business functions you need to do. One recent project that I did in Power Apps, we were able to cut several weeks off of compiling disparate data for a regulatory reporting process where the data was all being compiled manually out of different systems. And some of the things we were able to go ahead and get into some databases using ETL tools and be able to cut out the engineers having to go in and look at 17 different places and email spreadsheets around for 3 weeks. We were able to cut that down with a manual data entry form that we were able to develop in about a month and a half, and cut down on basically weeks worth of work shuffling spreadsheets back and forth trying to compile that data for that regulatory process. So we were pretty happy with how quickly we were able to get that up off the ground. That was actually the first production Power App that went into this particular company. So we were pretty pleased that we were able to get that off the ground as quickly as we did for them. Power Platform in itself provides you with access to most of the on-premise and cloud applications your business is using today. So there are hundreds of, if not thousands, of pre-built connectors, and you can build custom connections and REST API calls very, very quickly using the tools that are in the Power Platform. So basically SAP, Salesforce, your Google platforms, Azure platforms, everything can basically be connected very, very quickly with just a few clicks. The one Power BI project that I have, we were basically able to do one-click access to the OData feed. And then we were able to pare that down due to performance issues with custom parameters and URLs. But basically that the majority of connections that you're going to use are one-click ready. And so you can immediately connect to your data and go find the data that you need to start building applications. So that's something that we've never really had before, and it really comes back to the root of a lot of the failures in projects where requirements are unclear and things we don't know. Power Platform really gives us the ability to be fast and agile with our development and come up with something, put something in front of a user and work it through very, very, very quickly. So those are some capabilities that we've never really had before. And what I'd like to do is open it up to some questions. If you guys have any questions about how you can help you use Power Platform to make things faster for you, that's kind of what I'd like to talk about. Crystal, can you handle the questions?
Let me see if you don't have any as of right now. Maybe some people are still typing. Do you see where the question panel is on your right-hand side?
Yep. Yeah, I got it now.
You don't have any as of right now, but maybe we'll give like a few more minutes for you guys to get some questions in.
Import mode seems to be an issue for us. What might be we be missing? With import mode, probably the most critical things that you need to look at is consistency with your data, and that your data set is clean and coming in correctly. Most often when I see issues in import mode, it's because there are, one thing that's important to remember with Power BI is that when you're working in the query editor, you're only looking at your top 1,000 rows. So when you go and look at your top 1,000 rows, if your top 1,000 rows are one data type, but then row 1001 is a different data type or has data in it that it can't come into that type, that's one place that I've seen issues with import mode. The other place that you see some issues with import mode is any place you have inconsistent escaping of your data fields. So one of the places that it's really, really common is if you look at longer free text fields, you often have either quotes or single quotes or double quotes that have been typed in by users, and that has a tendency to give you issues with your import process. Power BI has strong ETL features. Is there a need for Alteryx ETL capabilities? There's a potential need if you can't do something in Power BI. The question there in my mind really is, what do you want your environment to look like, and where and how is your ETL being done? And do you need to have your ETL be done in a certain place or a certain location? Are you bringing the data in to Power BI from Alteryx? Are you bringing your data in from an EDW, from a third-party application? Personally, I have not come across any of the ETL features that Power BI is missing in terms of Power BI versus Alteryx. I haven't seen any. It doesn't mean there aren't any. It's just I haven't. 90% of the ETL that I needed to do in that situation, Power BI has been able to do it. It's a little bit more time consuming than writing SQL code, and you have to stop and think procedurally instead of thinking the way that you do with SQL. But once you're able to get your mind around, that step-by-step procedural, I really haven't seen too many issues where there's a need for something like Alteryx. Is time reducing the principal benefit of using Power Platform? No. It's definitely a significant one in my mind, but most of the benefits of using Power Platform are revolving around delivering business value. So you're able to custom code things that you normally would not be able to do. Power Platform is really, really good at custom, small, little one-off applications at the department level. Or even the enterprise level, but typically most of the enterprise level software packages, the requirements are a lot more robust than you would want to build out. I mean, if you think about doing something like Workday for HR, you're probably not going to want to replicate the functionality for that in Power Platform. But when you look at a smaller department application, if you're looking at something for, let's say COVID-19 exposure tracking, where you want to monitor temperatures, or you have some department process that could really use some automation. It's really being able to extend the automation and software functions down to the department level that may not have had it before, if that makes a lot of sense. And you can actually do that quickly. So it's a nice little set of features to have there. Can you give me an overview of triggers for initiating an example exporting SharePoint online list to Excel files? I can. The question, the biggest question is, if you have it in a SharePoint list, why do you need it in Excel files? And think about that. One of the ways that you can do that is you can go into the UI of Power Automate, and you can set up a monitor for that SharePoint list and say, okay, if an additional row or additional 20 rows, or if a value is X, then you can export that SharePoint online using Microsoft Power Automate. Unfortunately, I don't have the time today to go in to do a one-off example on that, but we can try to follow up and point you to some resources where you can do that. Is it the same cost for a Power App creator and the end user of the app? That's a kind of complicated licensing question. Basically, if you're using the feature set of Power BI Pro and you want to be able to create and upload your reports into the service, you require the Power BI Pro license. But unless you're sharing and creating data going onto the service, I don't believe you need Pro, but you need to double check that with your Microsoft account rep. What does the cost model look like? That depends. It gets into intricacies of whether or not you need the features of premium capacity, which are far more expensive. The Power BI Pro licensing, last I knew, was $5 a month, and there are some Power BI access features that are included with an E5 license. Unfortunately, costing, we really need to get into some more specifics about your deployment to really get a good idea. Can Power BI ETL process be scheduled? Yes, they can. You've got two choices in there. You can either refresh your data set based on the data set, or there's an additional option on the premium tier of doing data refreshes in a data flow, which is a little bit above a data set. So you've got two options there. They can be scheduled by the week, by the month. The amount of time that you can refresh something, the number of times you can refresh a data set within a specific period of time changes. So you may need the premium capacity based on the number of refreshes that you're trying to schedule. Comment on using Power Automate taking versus MS Excel attachments from an email and appending the data on a daily or weekly basis. I would recommend against that because you've got it gets difficult to keep track of how many times you're getting the email. So what I would, if you're looking to append rows from an Excel attachment into an email, what I would do is try to focus on that a little bit backwards and look at appending it to a master file. And so that, basically work off of the file and not necessarily the email. So you can set up a Power Automate rule where you can save the email attachment with a certain name, and then basically go ahead and append those rows that way. Our input mode is not refreshing through the Power BI service, something already registering the data source in Azure. Okay, so what it sounds like there is you've got an issue with connecting the data source in Azure, and you're not allowing that data in through the firewall. So you may need to make sure the ports are open and that the data source is registered in your Azure tenant. For Power Apps, what database do you use the most or find most useful? SharePoint, List, CDC, or Azure? Personally, I tend to like to use Azure SQL Server if that's a cost issue. I also use SQL Server on-prem quite a bit because there's a lot of capacity out there in a lot of clients. So I tend to use either the Azure SQL Server if I don't have sufficient databases stood up on-prem. If we've got plenty of database capacity, I'll tend to use the on-prem stuff. It's getting very out of the topic and all, but I realize that when using SQL Server to import data into Power BI, depending on the size of the data, it becomes very slow. Is there anything that can help with this? Yes, there's a couple of tactics that you can use around incremental refresh. There's a lot of stuff coming out now on using the XMLA endpoints, which you can use to trigger incremental refreshes. Depending on how much data you're moving in, if you're moving in a lot of transactional data that's coming out of source apps that are not doing summarizations or ETLs, you may want to go ahead and look at doing incremental refreshes where you're only refreshing certain points of time in the application. 999 Power BI Pro, yes. However, it depends on what your licensing agreement is. I know that some of the E5 licenses, it's $5 a month. It all depends on what your contract relationship is with Microsoft. Want to sync data from Salesforce into a table in Redshift. Is this possible? And what does the cost model look like if I just do a daily refresh? I don't know why you need to do that with Power BI. You would want to use the ETL tools available from AWS to get your data directly from Salesforce into Redshift. And then you could pull your data from Redshift into Power BI. Again, what database or data warehousing platform? We tend to use SQL Server. There's a variety of them out there. It really kind of depends on what your particular use case is and what you're trying to do at the end of the day. With Power Platform, what will be the future of services like SSAS and SSIS? I don't think that that's necessarily tied just to Power Platform itself. I think the question is, what does the picture look like with Azure Data Factory and the rest of the tools? So it becomes a little bit of a surgical discussion of what ETL do you want to do in the cloud and Power Platform? What does your environment look like? And that kind of thing. On the SSAS piece, I have a personal guess, and again, it's nothing more than a personal guess. But with the improvements to the tabular model coming into Power BI the way that they have, with the XMLA endpoints being exposed, and all of the work that we're seeing come out of putting the tabular model into Power BI, I would say that a lot of the investment for Microsoft going forward looks like it'll be doing tabular in Power BI. But again, that's pure speculation and guess. I really couldn't go. All I can say is look at the pace of changes coming into Power BI and Power Platform, and that's where Microsoft's putting a lot of their money into. Performing ETL with Power BI and XML files seem to highlight a lot of duplication in columns and information across tables. Is there an easy way to blow out the XML structure to reduce the amount of information duplication? I guess that depends on your definition of easy. XML files, the complexity of your schema in XML may change that. The other option you've got there too is you may want to consider some kind of Python scripting that handles XML with aplomb. Python does XML really well, and there is the opportunity to run Python scripting in the Power Query module. All right. Looks like we've gone through the questions that I can see. Any last gasps? Crystal, any last questions or anything you want me to hit?
I don't see any more questions coming in through the chat. That looks like everything here on my end. Everyone's saying thank you. All right, perfect. All right, thank you so much, Chad, for hosting this webinar. We greatly appreciate it. As for anybody else with the question of when you guys will have the recording will be sent out tomorrow around noon Eastern Standard Time. So please look for that in your email box. If you guys want to view any of our past webinars, please feel free to go onto our YouTube channel at Pragmatic Works and go under the free training playlist, and you can find them all there. If you guys have any questions for Chad or myself, please feel free to email us or reach out. We'll be more than happy to help. If you guys are interested in our Power Platform remote services, I will drop the link in the chat so you guys will be able to click on that and view that from there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Again, Chad, thank you so much for hosting. We greatly appreciate it.
No worries. Have a great week. Any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks.
All right, no problem. Thank you.